Okay, how's it going? I'm going to do this in quick capture because my camera's I don't feel like fucking with it, and it'll probably take quick capture will only do 10 minutes, even if you are you know what a partner. So um, I'll have to cut it up. Um, I feel it's about time to do another gun um, commentary. Because these several mass shootings that have occurred recently. Whenever these things happen, the debate always comes up of you know, a conversation that starts out like this is about to happen. If we didn't have guns, these people wouldn't have died, and that, of course, is true. If there were no guns anywhere, no one would get shot. They'd get stabbed or impaled or sliced or whatever, all the different things that we used to do to kill people before we had guns. Murder is not unique to the era of firearms. Um, no matter how much they want to make it look like we're more violent now than we used to be, in reality, on a personal level, for the common man in the Western world, we're much less violent than we used to be, even with guns. Um, so that is a pipe dream of no more guns anywhere, and that doesn't even need to be under discussion because violence is necessary. War, conflict, and death is a necessary process of human society. It advances us technologically and socially far more than any other aspect of our lives. That's just the way it is. The world would, human society wouldn't exist without conflict. Um, so I'm not even against war or killing people. I prefer the wars to be justified, but what can you do? Um, so then it comes down to the more practical conversation about if citizens, excuse me, specifically citizens of the United States, which is where this conversation comes up the most, at least that I hear about it. Um, if citizens didn't have guns or the right to own guns, we wouldn't have these many murders, and that is absolutely not true. Um, the vast majority of murders are done by you know organized crime and things of that nature. But those really aren't the things that grab headlines. It's these mass killings and things like that grab headlines. Um, and for me, the ultimate game breaker is that without the right to arm yourself, you don't have the right to self-defense. And this isn't necessarily on the level of the right to defend yourself from criminals, though that is an issue, even though guns don't prevent crimes necessarily. Um, the right to defend yourself is a fundamental right of being a free person. That's why back in the day, serfs weren't allowed to own weapons, swords or whatever. Um, there's a reason for that. That's why it's in the Constitution, because the people that wrote the Constitution were pretty fucking smart. Not all the time, but when it came down to the rights that they wrote down in the Constitution, they were pretty fucking intelligent. They understood that tyranny is an issue for all times. Things don't change. This is not a world free from tyranny or the possibility of things of that nature. And people like to trick themselves into thinking things like this because it's a defense mechanism because they don't want to possibly believe that their lives could ever be like that. That's because they're delusional. And personally, first of all, 11,000 gun deaths or so a year in the United States. It sounds bad, especially in comparison with countries like Canada that have more guns per person than we do, but less murders, drastically less murders. Even so, 11,000 dead is not really that big of a deal. I really hate to break it to you. In the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal. But for a lot of people, it is. So, you know, um, more people are, 40,000 alcohol-related deaths. Whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm personally willing to trade 11,000 lives to the right to personal defense and the right to be free. If that's the price that must be paid, then so be it. But it's not. 11,000 deaths aren't necessary. And there's 3 things that you can do to very simply, remedy most of these deaths. First of all, these mass killings, which is a really small amount of the number of people killed, but they're the things that grab the headlines, have at their core a mental health root. Sane people don't do things like that. They just don't. I hate to break it to you, but nobody just snaps one day after living a completely sane life and kills a bunch of people. It takes a special mind to do things like that. Even things like Columbine, those boys were bullied, true, but lots of people are bullied, and most of them don't shoot their classmates. There's a mental health problem at the root of the issue here. And it's something that we've always had an issue with in this country. We ignore mental illness, we stigmatize mental illness to the point that people don't want to seek help for it, or they ignore it when they see signs in other people. That's the problem. Even if whatever the guy's name was in New York that killed those 13 people the other day, even if he hadn't had guns, he was fucking crazy, he would have done something. He'd have killed himself or stabbed his family, or he would have done something. Nick, my cat is making an entrance. What do you want? They would have done something. So that's the issue here, not guns. Crazy people will find a way to be crazy with guns or whatever it is they can find. People would disagree with me, but they're wrong on this, and I think it's fairly legitimate. So what I would ask for is some psychological evaluation, some psychological requirement in order to own a gun, because though the mentally ill, the dangerously mentally ill, have the right to self-defense, the threat, the risk is way, the scales are tilted, and there's plenty of other people with guns to prevent some tyranny, so that we can let that slide. So I don't know how this would be implemented. It's not my job. That's just my suggestion, and I think it would keep these people from at least legally getting these guns. All right, I'm going to stop it and upload a second part.